Scrum.
Yes, g'day everybody. Lovely to have your company for the 2 hours we get to share with you this afternoon. Obviously the Broncos and the Warriors later on this evening. You will hear that right here on Triple M, but we've got 2 hours to break apart what happened last night. 38 points to 4. The Panthers are the first side through to next week's grand final. It's all over for the Storm. What a clinical display that was. We'll get all of the details on that from Ryan Girdler, Benny Teo and Dave Riccio. My name's Tony Squires. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good to be here, Tone.
Hey guys.
I had a really horrible experience. Walked in here. Brendo from Dead Set Legends, who's a Penrith supporter, just said, I can't remember not being in a grand final. You know, Ryan
It's a little
Girdler.
bit nasty. It's a little bit nasty. Look, I said it. I was on the show with the guys earlier. It's just a great time to be a Panther, Tone. Have to be honest.
Yeah,
It's just such a nice time to just sit back and watch what's unfolded over the last 5 or so years, and the dynasty that's been built within those four walls, and to watch them go out last night and just tactically, strategically, just pull apart the Melbourne Storm, who have just been at the top of their game for what have they played in 8 out of their last 9 prelim finals, which is an incredible record on its own. But then to be dismantled the way that they were last night by a meticulous Penrith outfit, it's hard not to be up and about this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. They're brilliant, Benny. And we'll get to the details of the game very shortly. But just an overarching thought, Ben Teo, on that performance.
It was just watching excellence, wasn't it? It's what we've seen over the last few years. And, as a spectator, usually when you see a team at the top for so long, you just wish that they would lose. You become a little bit of a hater on the success. But for me, I just don't get that with the side. I really enjoy watching them get better and better. I love watching them lose players and lose coaching staff and bring in some new ones and almost get better. And very rarely do you see the Melbourne Storm resort to a little bit of some cheap tactics there. They look frustrated. They just knew, I think, maybe 20 minutes in that they couldn't win that game. And there was a lot of niggle going on in it. But I just love it. I mean, I think the two front rowers are exceptional in starting games, nice and physical and direct for them. And I think the best part for spectators was the fact that Jerome Luai got through the game and that he's off. He got 20 minutes before the game. They pulled him off, standing ovation. He gets to get ready now 9 days for a grand final, which is good for everyone, because it would have been terrible to see someone like him not make it to the grand final.
Absolutely. That was perfect. 20 minutes to go, off he goes, and he's got some football in his legs now as well, so he's ready to go in the grand final. It's an interesting that one, Dave Riccio, because during the week we were hearing from the likes of Dr. Nathan Gibbs, highly regarded, respected, that he was seriously risking re-injuring that shoulder by playing last night.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an extraordinary effort by Jerome and a real level of professionalism to rehab. Would have had to have been 24/7. To get back onto the footy field in such quick time last night. It was interesting comments post-match from Penrith coach Ivan Cleary, admitting that this week there was really no discussion about Jerome's shoulder within the four walls. It was all systems go, and he admitted that he actually had to check himself due to all the noise coming at the Panthers about Jerome's shoulder, that he had to think, well, hang on a sec, maybe it is real, maybe it is an extraordinary thing, and maybe are we doing the right thing? And it shows that there was every box had been ticked for Jerome to get out onto the footy field, and the fact that he got through unscathed, the fact that the one set through to 17 got through unscathed, that is key. You go into a grand final being able to pick the same team. No judiciary charges, I can confirm that.
Right, okay.
No charges for any Panthers player this morning.
What about Nathan? I mean, it was kind of, he didn't go off for an HIA, obviously, when he had that head knock.
No.
And he went down. I mean, you would have hated to see him go off and, get the mandatory stand down for the grand final, but that was never going to happen. He just a bit of claret, but no drama whatsoever.
Yeah, no drama. Interestingly, Josh King, the player responsible for the cut over the eye of Nathan Cleary, has been charged by the match review committee this morning for a grade 1 dangerous contact. It's right up Gerds' alley. It's a $750 fine. But no, as far as the Panthers, outstanding news. No charges, no injuries.
I get confused by these the dislocated. It was a dislocated shoulder we're talking about, which is the same. The dislocated shoulder for Carlton player Sam Doherty last week, and he came back on after halftime with it strapped up and played, and will play this week.
Yeah, well, it's all to do with the internal damage around with the ligaments around the shoulder. Now, my next question, of which probably isn't a talking point going through a grand final week, but it will be whether Jerome Luai needs postseason surgery to repair.
100%.
Yeah, and then the impact on potentially not playing for Samoa.
Yep.
But it's grand final week, and he is A-OK.
Triple M rocking footy finals for you on a Saturday afternoon. We do it for King G Workwear. My name is Tony Squires. I'm joined by the legends that are Ryan Girdler, Benny Teo, and Dave Riccio. And the Panthers, selfish Panthers fans, get to celebrate another grand final. It's been a long time since four in a row. It's a phenomenal performance. And I guess if you look at what they've been able to achieve over those years, you take a look at the 80 minutes of last night, and it was bordering on perfect, Ben Teo.
Yeah, it was just, looking at the game, it was nice and tight at the start. At one stage, it was 4-4 and they were into the grind, but you just knew. History shows that the Panthers love those games. They like to do the damage early on, and just watching Melbourne get frustrated. And the Panthers are just so patient, so clinical. They've got a well-balanced side. And when Liam Martin made that sort of break and he put Cleary away, that was where they just broke open the game, and that was it. Felt for Melbourne, I just feel like they're going to have to reboot somehow in terms of their squad and get some more power, some youth in their side. But love watching this Penrith side go about it, and interested to see today's game. Just what the two teams toss up. They've had great stories, and if any of them can really challenge Penrith, is be the interesting one.
Ryan Girdler, you've obviously been involved in great Penrith teams. You've won grand final there as well. Where are they, this team? Where do they sit?
Yeah, I think they're the best. They're the best team that I've seen. Like, I wasn't old enough to witness Parramatta and the run that they went on, but I'm not sure what the salary cap situation was back then. And I've seen some great sides, like the Melbourne Storm and the Roosters have, really nice periods. But just as a team, a team that consistently perform on a weekly basis, I don't think I've seen a group of men prepare and execute the way that these guys do it. And it's the little parts of their game and how hard they work for each other on both sides of the football. It's just incredible. Like, to watch them, the way that they attack and the formations and the moving parts. Benny, as a coach, I'd imagine it would be a nightmare because, most sides, when they have guys that run through a lead line, they'll sort of take one or two tackles to sort of get back on side and get ready for the kick chase or whatever. But the urgency, and Benny mentioned it before, it's like this constant pursuit of excellence on every play. And that's what I think separates them from the other teams in the competition. Like, they're big men in the middle. They'll run a lead line, but instead of just sort of walking back and getting ready to chase the kick, they'll sprint back. They'll get in, they'll reload, and they'll get in great position to have an impact on the next play, whether they get the football or not. And I was talking to Benny about it before. Fisher Harris had this one moment last night, this sequence, where he forced the error. Like, he came out of the line. I think he's probably the best front rower in the competition at the moment defensively. There's a lot of other guys we're talking about with Haas, Fanua Blake, what they do with the football. But appetite just to make a difference defensively, I think he's got him covered, because he just play 2 or 3. He just owns it defensively. He comes out of the line, and he forced an error last night. Play 2 was in the scrum. Then the Panthers got the football. Play 2, he does a hit up, leaves a couple on the ground, generates the momentum, quick play the ball. Cleary goes line, turns someone back under. Play 3, Fisher Harrison gets the football, goes into the line, passes out the back to Cleary, and then Toto scores in the corner.
But the interesting thing about them is, like, they make good teams throw their game plan out the window and try and become expansive. They're almost resigned to the fact that they cannot go toe-to-toe with the Penrith Panthers, and we both know that finals games are tight affairs. It's about grinding football. No one seems quite confident to play that game. We watch Manly come up with some bizarre tactics. I watch Storm move the ball side to side. If you're the Penrith Panthers, you're almost like a boxer. You're just walking them down. They're dancing around, trying all kinds of things. But you know, at the end of the day, guys, you cannot beat us at the game and the game that counts, which is grinding, tough footy. And I just think it's impressive to see them make teams just totally change their game plan.
Gerds, you touched on it, and I wouldn't mind drilling deeper a little bit on this because it will be the talking point of the grand final lead-up on where this Penrith Panthers side sits in the pantheon of rugby league. And that is, you said you weren't old enough to watch 81, 82, 83 Eels.
Yep.
Then, the next great era was the Broncos, 92, 93.
Yep.
We've had the great Raiders sides. I'm of the belief this is better than all those teams. This current Penrith team is better than all those teams. Would you agree on that?
Well, as I said, Dave, I think probably individually they mightn't have the same sort of calibre of profile of player.
No.
But I would say as a group, collectively as a team, yes, I would say their ability and along with their coach and that whole organisation to perform at a certain level every week. I don't think I've seen another team sustain that sort of excellence. And then I guess for the whole organisation to then lose players and then bring other players back in, whether it be, regardless of the position, their importance to their season the year before. And then just to find ways to just improve as a team, like what Mitch Kenny's been able to do. Different player than Api Coruscant, but the way that he just holds the middle and how that's changed the game for Isaiah Yeo and Nathan Cleary. You see them this year, they run more on the back of momentum because they know Mitch isn't going to run so often. Yeah, and Api used to take that space and that opportunity. They used to create opportunities off the back of Api identifying ruck speed and pulling the trigger. Well, Mitch doesn't do that so much. He tightens their middle defensively, so that allows, and you saw it last night with Isaiah Yeo, run plays a lot more direct, doesn't play out the back as much, takes yards when he needs to, but then also brings Nathan onto the ball. So, I just think as a whole organisation, Dave, I haven't witnessed, and I've got to play against some of those sides, like the Broncos in their heyday, like the Canberra Raiders in their heyday, and I just don't think consistently I saw them perform at the same level that I see Penrith attack the game on a weekly basis.
See, I would argue that it's even more harder to achieve what Penrith have achieved in this current era due to the salary cap and the stringency on the salary cap. I think the game is policed more than ever as far as player payments are concerned, unlike 20 years ago where the flood of talent did go to the more dominant clubs. The Panthers have had to go through a significant turnover. When Api Coruscant left the club, I thought, no, this is their time. They're going to dip. Viliami Kikau, when he departed the club, he was the best back rower in the game. And Kurt Capewell's another example. He's an Origin player, leaves the club, they just find another one.
Matt Burton,
exactly. And I think the Broncos, Raiders, those absolute champion sides, they were able to keep their teams together due to less stringent salary cap policing at that time compared to what it is today.
All right, just a quick, let's check out the other side of the field to the Storm. You mentioned it, Benny, they'll need to do something. In terms of their season, there was talk going into this game that they needed a little bit more, mongrel, I don't know if that's the right word, in the forward pack for that game to hold their own. Where do you think they do need to make changes if they're going to go a little bit further in season 24?
Oh, I just think in their pack. Mainly, Melbourne have traditionally invested a lot of money in their spine, and it worked when you had Billy and Cooper and Cam. They've done the same with Harry Grant, Munster, Hughes, Pappenhausen. They've put a lot of money there, and I think in the past they've been able to do a good job of grabbing players who aren't fulfilling their potential at other clubs and getting them up to speed and getting the best out of them. But I think you're seeing in the NRL, you need big, strong athletes. Yep. And I think that's where they're lacking. They don't have the Carrigan, the Payne-Haas, the Flegler. They don't have the Leota, the Fisher.
If they had like a Tino, if they would have got Tino back into the organisation.
They tried hard
absolutely.
too.
Yeah, that makes a difference.
They know what they need.
And you just look at, he was on here the other week, great guy, but, Christian Welsh, he's sort of starting to slow down, the Achilles injury. You just sort of see guys like Tarek Sims. I just feel like they're missing that power punch at the moment.
Do they fall out of the 8 next year? And I say that because of what you're saying is there's no one to buy. They don't. Next season, the Melbourne Storm can't recruit any of which those players you've just spoken about. Yeah. Do they fall out of the 8 next year?
I would never, ever suggest that Melbourne ever fall out of the 8. I think their system and they do enough to always be up there. They will always be in the 8. But I don't see them winning it. I just can't see them winning it for the next few years unless they sort of reboot.
They conceded 500 points for the first time since 2005.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So that they know that there's some issues. That's not the Melbourne Storm that we've come to know. Last night was just their statistics were just, I think it was a 65% completion rate. 65% completion rate against the Panthers. You cannot compete.
And that, Dave, goes back to exactly what Benny was saying. But I actually thought that they went out and their strategy was pretty good. They had a nice result early on the back of kicking to the wingers. I think if Penrith, and I'm not going to call it a weakness, but if there's a vulnerability amongst their side, it's probably having big wingers that can jump over the top of their smaller wingers. And they did that. Smith got the football back. We saw a missed tackle. Olam scored. And then they found themselves in the contest at different moments. Not that Penrith went away from what they do so well, because they love that part of it, right? But the Melbourne Storm had a couple of other opportunities there. If ball goes to hand, if they were a little bit more clinical, they might have been able to apply just that little bit more pressure and stay in the contest. But the frustration and I think the fatigue of those playmakers seeing their pack get dominated and know that they had to always come up with the big play, it just wore them down in the end. But I thought that Melbourne went out there, Benny, and probably played a fair bit better than they had in previous weeks, but just got exposed late in the contest because of those reasons you're talking about, the middle.
Yeah. And they didn't get blown off the park, which is good, like they did versus the Broncos. And they're a better side when Big Nelson's on the field. Yep. Like you can just tell that when they get that powerful go forward. But I thought he had lost his mind last night. He was looking for anything sort of a little bit dirty. He was hitting guys off the ball. I thought he lost his composure.
But don't you think that was strategic, Benny?
Well, it might have been strategic. I'm not too sure, but I think it took him out of his game. I didn't think he had his best performance. A big man like that, he doesn't need to be running around and trying to hit halfbacks late. He just needs to get the ball and run over. But you can always see he's a passionate guy. You can always see frustration clearly on the face of Cam Munster when he's out there trying to probably do everything for himself.
Yeah. And the other thing I thought was interesting, and Craig Bellamy's done it the last couple of weeks. He starts with Nelson, their best go forward man, the guy that generates more rucks than any other player, and he leaves Harry Grant on the bench. Yeah. So any sort of momentum that they could potentially start with on the back of Nelson is sort of taken away because Garlick's a good player, but he's a different player than Harry. Yeah. And then Nelson pretty much comes off, and then Harry goes on.
And you're right though about those two wingers, like To'o and Taruva, they got two sort of, shorter wingers that a lot of guys could jump over. One thing they do, Penrith, is when you put that kick to them, what they get numbers around. So you might jump up and you might get that footy, but if it goes on the ground or when you come down the land, there's a million guys around you to help out. So you can't really get any results out of that. But on the flip side, when they're coming out of yardage, they're hard to handle. Those little blokes getting in there, late feet, finding their front, playing the ball. That's why when you get into grind footy, you can't compete with those two wingers.
Tony Squires, Ryan Girdler, Ben Teo, Dave Riccio with you. All right, we've got several hours before kick-off this evening. Time to just have a think about some of the issues that have popped up over the past week. All right, Dave Riccio, fill me in on this. Where are we exactly with New South Wales State of Origin? Now, Freddie, there's a bit of an overhaul. I'm not sure how much is it Freddie driven, how much has it been pasted onto him if he is going to retain that job next season. We do know that Greg Alexander had said that because he kind of paused when was asked, do you want to go around again? He thought, well, you know what, that probably tells me that it's time for me to pull the pin. That great man has done just that. Then we've got Danny Badiris, Mary, obviously, and Joey Johns. Where are they officially gone or not?
Tone, guys, Brad Fittler had the opportunity to present his way forward for the New South Wales Origin team at a New South Wales Rugby League board meeting yesterday morning. And it was there that I understand each of those members of Freddie's coaching staff was told to the board that they would no longer be involved with Freddie's setup, and that is Danny Baderis, Andrew Johns, Paul McGregor, and head of high performance Hayden Knowles, which leads to a genuine clean out of Freddie's staff and who may come in. And Greg Alexander is obviously the other key figure who was effectively Freddie's right-hand man and a senior advisor when it came to picking the team, and also just being a sounding board for Freddie. They obviously have an extremely tight relationship that goes back 30 years. So Brandy has also decided to stand down. That has raised the prospect of Phil Gould stepping into that role of what Brandy used to do. The board now wants some thinking music. They want some thinking time, Tone. I understand that they've gone away to consider what Freddie's put forward, and I expect an outcome at some point next week. I'll say that Freddie's still in the box seat to retain the position, but I'm not absolutely going to sit here and declare it's guaranteed.
Will he be able to suggest names that he wants in there, or will they be kind of put in?
There's been a whole heap. Look, I can't confirm which names he put forward yesterday as far as replacements are concerned, but I'm happy to tell you which names are certainly doing the rounds as far as leading names in the discussion point, and they are Jason Riles, Ben Hornby, Trent Barrett, Matty King, all of which have been involved in NRL setups. Right, they're currently assistant coaches in some capacity at current NRL clubs, but also have buy-in back into the New South Wales Blues team as past players. So they are some of the names that have been bandied around.
Right. Jason Riles currently enjoying a lot of time with Eddie Jones.
Yeah, Eddie Jones, and then on his way to the Melbourne Storm. That's right.
Indeed. Gerds, the Gus Gould kind of figure looming. Will that work? Can that work?
Oh, it always comes up. No. I don't. I don't know. I don't know if that's a serious option. I would look at a guy like Ivan Cleary, to be honest. I'm a little bit surprised that there's been such a clean out. Obviously, these guys come in and they need to have confidence and a working relationship with the people around them. And, I don't think they've been that far away. Yeah. So if you're going to go with Freddie, I'm not sure why you've got such an issue with the people that he was with. But anyway, if you're going to go...
I'll just jump in real quick. It has been suggested... Sorry, Gertz. It has been suggested that each of those individuals want to focus on current work environments. Paul McGregor, Andrew Johns, Channel 9, and Bedsy with the Newcastle Knights. So it needs to be determined on why the moves have been made.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Nathan, Ivan came in at the back end of Game 3, and I'm sure he could, if he could take a little bit of he wouldn't need a lot of time away from Penrith, but just like an advisory role for someone that's obviously highly successful and in the job at the moment, I think could be a great relationship. But, as I've said all along, like if the result, the outcome of Game 3 for me said that the players all want Freddie to be there. Yeah. That was a great performance. And if Freddie wants to be there, I think he's the man for the job with the right people around him. I think they can get the job done with the players that we have available at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not buying Phil Gould going on. He's pretty busy, isn't he? He's got enough roles going on. But I agree. I thought it was good to see Ivan Cleary in the box in Game 3. Probably brought a nice calming influence to the setup. He's invested in it, obviously, with his son. He wants the team to go well. And, there's nothing wrong, really, with rebooting some of your assistants and just getting some new life. But one of the big jobs of the state coaches, a lot of media, a lot of sponsorship, a lot of that. And Freddie fits all those bills. So he just needs some really good current coaches in there. And I think they'll be strong next year.
All right, Dave Rick, bring me up to speed on this one. Very important to me. Dragons, Shane Flanagan, new coach, saying that Ben Hunt can lead the Dragons to finals footy. Now, there's all this talk I noticed in the paper. You were there, a brunch involving the likes of Mark Taylor. As somebody, a leadership can offer leadership advice to Ben Hunter and others at the club. Yeah,
it was pretty impressive yesterday morning, guys. Shane Flanagan, the new head coach of the Dragons, organised off his own bat about a 50 to 60 invite to influential sponsors, board members, past and current players, to a basically my plan for the Dragons. as through the eyes of Shane Flanagan. And it was quite strategic and well thought out. I thought it was highly impressive. In that room also was, as who you mentioned, Tone, Mark Taylor, tragic Dragon fan.
Yeah, I've watched the game sitting alongside him. It's hilarious.
Champion fella. Mark Coyne, Queensland Origin great, was also there and a good friend of Shane Flanagan's. And it was, it was in that room that Ben Hunt's future came up. And Flanagan is absolute committed holus bolus to Ben Hunt being there next year. Beyond that will become a discussion point for 25. And ultimately, I agree. I don't see Ben Hunt anywhere else but the Red V next year. I think he turns up pre-season training, and that's what Flanagan spoke about yesterday. He's really intent on pushing this narrative that when Ben Hunt walks through the doors for pre-season training for the first time, this will be a Dragons club that he hasn't seen before. So Flanagan, new high-performance staff, new coaching staff will present a completely new pre-season and completely new look of how it feels to be a Dragon.
All right.
Tony, you love that, didn't you? You just sat in that.
You see me sit up a bit straighter in my seat.
What about that?
He's
sold.
Yeah.
His
Sadly,
eyes are getting misty.
Yeah, I am. Well, they were misty when I read about that brunch and no invite for Tony.
We're working on it.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
No ticket for Tony.